you gonna put it over there?
Should I put it over here? I was gonna realize I'm down to, should I put it over here? I was gonna realize I'm down to,
Hi, Don.
Hello, Kelly.
Hi, Richard. I don't see you.
No, I'm getting there. There we go.
Hi there.
Hello. Well, that was a fun little snow shower we got this afternoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, I like it. I
Yeah.
wish we got some.
My wife is going crazy. She loves snow too.
Oh, Tamara, aren't you festive with a background?
Look at that. She's got on some fancy headphones on.
I know, so I can hear everybody.
Yes. And not disturb everybody else in the household.
That's right.
So, Tamara, before the meeting starts, can I ask you a few questions?
Oh, sure.
Since I'm not the expert here. You said to put zoom into the speakers mode. So I under share screen, I'm putting in that multiple people can share. And Mary from Basics and I just tested that. So is that
Okay.
good enough?
That's great.
Okay. I don't know how to put everybody on mute.
There
Uh,
should be something down there.
Yeah, you could probably just tell everybody to get on mute and
I can mute them myself individually.
yeah, I think that's it.
So Tamara, if you say something I don't like, I'll just mute you.
That's it. That works.
Okay, and then we're streaming now on YouTube. I
See
didn't
that?
get anybody to volunteer to watch the YouTube, so I have it on my phone.
Okay.
I'm not sure what I need to do to YouTube to enable a chat feature.
Me neither.
Okay. Don,
I'm
you're not
hearing.
speaking up as a Zoom expert. That's a no.
I think that was a frozen screen. He's
Frozen screen.
he's not moving.
I think I offended Don. He is frozen.
He was getting ready to tell you that no, he doesn't know all that stuff about this, but I don't know. There should be on the hosting a place where you can mute all. I know that my chorus director does that to us, which is kind of nice.
Mine does too.
Yeah. He's coming back.
You can tell you're not frozen.
Yeah, he's not frozen.
Can you hear me still if I take this off?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. How about I do that?
But Don's talking a blue streak and we can't hear him because he's muted.
Yes.
There he is.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know what just happened. I was talking, everybody else was frozen, but it seems like everybody is moving now. So.
Well, that's all right. We were okay and you were frozen. So so something wasn't working.
Something wasn't working.
Yep. Just reaffirming my grasp of this technology.
Uh-huh.
It's a moving target, I tell you. I don't know. Still working on it myself. Now I've got a bridge coming out of my head. I don't know.
Hello, Linda. You're muted as well. Spacebar. There you go.
Got it.
There you go.
Was that Richard speaking?
Yeah, that was me.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Linda.
Hello.
Welcome. Okay, we're 2 minutes away from launching.
Well, hello, Ramona. Good to see you.
Does anyone know Jean Gerlich? She was the woman that was run over
No.
yesterday.
Oh, my.
She was
Oh.
residing at Holiday Park.
Oh,
73. My friends, the Paces, knew her from Holiday Park. Anyway, wonderful woman, and just horrible.
yes.
Terrible. Do you know she's going to be okay, Tamara?
No, she died.
She died.
Oh,
She was run over and she was at, I think 19th and Stark or something, meeting someone.
right.
Yeah, she died on the scene.
And the person came back and hit her twice and, and then dragged her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
wasn't enough.
Yeah.
I know. Craziness. As if, having a pandemic wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Nope.
that was you, Richard.
That was me. Yes. I'm sorry.
You and your clocks.
I'll turn it off before the others go.
Okay, it's bewitching hour, as your clock said. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tamara DeRitter. I'm the chairwoman for Rose City Park Neighborhood Association, and I'm here to welcome you to our winter general membership meeting. We have an exciting and diverse lineup for you this evening. First, we will hear from several of our local commercial shops on how their business is doing during the time of all things COVID. Then we will hear presentations from agency representatives about the proposed Hollywood Hub, the next steps on the Broadway trolley. We will then receive updates from our committees, including the newly formed Diversity Committee, and we will share presentations of this year's Walker Award, followed by music by the former board member, Larry Wilder. Yeah, I'm working on my screen here. Okay. Tonight you'll hear from the following guests. The local business people include Mary Paganelli from Basics Market, Blair Chow from Zen Hong Restaurant, and Prescott Allen, co-owner of the New Deal Cafe. The Hollywood Hub presenters will include Libby Winter, Guy Ben Stirs, and Michelle Trevor. On the trolley proposal, we'll hear that from PBOT presenters Kate Drennan and Nicholas Starren. But before we get started, I have a few announcements. The Rose City Park Neighborhood Association meeting is brought to you by, in part, our community partners that include the Gold Standard, which is the German American Society, Silver, which is Albina Head Start, Early Head Start, St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church and School, Basics Market, Portland General Electric, and Fire on the Mountain. And then the bronze level is Paper Jam and TDR and Associates, Land Use Planning and Public Engagement. Let's give them a virtual round of applause. Yay! On behalf of the board, I am to announce a couple resignations that we've received on our board, sadly. That includes Joe Saraceno has stepped down from the board, but he still will be leading our Rose City Park Playground Project Committee. Board members Meg Griffith and Jennifer Sainthouse have joined his Playground Project Committee to help maintain the 501c3 status we have lent to this project. Second, longtime member Ed Gorman has submitted his formal resignation from the board as vice chair. Ed was one of the primary reasons I joined the Land Use and Transportation Committee back in 2008 when he served as the chairman. As some of you can recall, Ed and his wife Sherry helped lead the naturescaping project at Rose City Park Elementary School prior to its closure in the 1990s. Ed and his family have given over 20 years of service to this neighborhood association. Let's give them all a round of applause for their service. Yay, virtual. Okay, we also have newly appointed board member, Zoe Ezekiels. Zoe, can you raise your hand so people can recognize you?
Zoe was unable to attend tonight, Tamara.
Oh, she can't raise her
I
hand?
got a note from her.
Oh, I didn't see that. Well, this brings the number of our board members to a total of 10 people. Our bylaws state that the board can hold up to 25 members. So vacancies still exist. At-large positions may be approved by the board between general membership elections. So if you have any interest in checking out our committees or sitting in on a board meeting, please do. We hold them on the first Tuesday of every month. So at this point, let's turn now to hear from a few local businesses and see how they're holding up in the face of COVID-19 pandemic. Mary Paganelli is a communications coordinator for Basic Market. That's located at 5035 Northeast Sandy Boulevard. Mary, are you with us?
I am. Can everybody hear me? Great. Well, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about our market. We're super excited to be in the neighborhood. And as you can see behind me, that's a photo of our Basics Market at Sandy Boulevard on a sunny day, not like today where we had a little bit of those snow flurries, everybody. I'm going to switch to some slides, and I'm really looking forward to updating everybody on what's happening at the market. I wanted to give you a little bit more detail about how we're pivoting and some of the different things we're doing in the market as a result of the challenges of COVID. So I'm going to share my screen right now, knock on wood, and go into the slides. All right, is that working for everybody?
Yes.
Fantastic. Yay for technology. All right. For those of you who might not be familiar, our market is Basics Market. It's one of 5 locations. It's our very first retail market, and it's up on 50th and Sandy. This is the exterior of the market, and we celebrated our 2-year anniversary just this past September. So it was a real milestone for us. We've been, as I said, extremely happy about being in the neighborhood. You know, the welcoming that we've had from all of the neighbors and neighboring associations. So thank you for that. Just to refresh you about a little bit more about us, we are locally owned. We have our own supply chain, and I'll get to that in a minute because that certainly has been a huge plus during this challenges of the COVID time. We have our own dairies, farms, and ranches. So we're able to supply our own meats, cheese, eggs, and a variety of other products directly to the markets, as well as a number of our own brands. The diagram illustration you see there is representative of, and you'll see that in the market as well, representative of all of our different operations and agricultural holdings that lead directly into being able to supply products directly to our market. So you'll notice a number of different brands, local organic meat, organic eggs, and a variety of other products that are represented on there. Hopefully you all can still see that. I'm getting a little note that my connection is not so great. So to address what I was asked to talk about, and I think this is you know, just such an important topic right now. We've been super lucky that we are in the food industry and that we are a grocery market. So therefore have not been as seriously impacted as many businesses who are facing this really challenging time. However, COVID restrictions and requirements have resulted in quite a bit of pivoting and flexibility in the market. As I mentioned, the Sandy market is our first retail market. So it was designed around a particular aesthetic as far as having meal stations and shoppable kiosks and small footprint market. So we had to look at that in terms of making sure that there has been enough space for our shoppers to be able to safely access you know, our products and get through the aisles. So we have worked on a number of changes to the footprint and layout of the market. I don't know how many of you have visited us recently, but this is all in progress right now. And these are changes that we're making as a result of some of these very important restrictions. that will enable us to offer more products and expand the footprint of the market just in terms of people being able to, go through the aisles and keep the 6-foot distancing. So we'll be adding things like a separate a point of sale cash register area. We have taken away some of our meal stations to enable people to get through the aisles more easily. And we've added Sunday hours, which is the first for us at all of our locations, simply because more people need to shop when it's convenient. And so we decided to add those Sunday hours so that we were open and available to folks in the neighborhood. It's been received very, very well. So we were excited about being able to introduce that a couple of months ago. Another component that was a change for us was the offering of curbside shopping. We're a very small market. We're a very small set of markets. So, we were able to come up with a way to have people, very simple, not lots of high technology here, make a phone call, ask us what you're looking for. We'll pack it for you. We'll put it in bags. We'll bring it to the curbside. No contact in terms of, not necessary to come into the market. But we're not at a point where, we have our whole inventory online or anything like that. So it's a small scale pivot to enable people to still continue to shop with us. Prepared foods expansion. This has been very interesting because it's not an area that we had considered offering, in particular at the Sandy location. And so we have found that people are looking more for homemade, house-made, chef-made entrees and soups and salads. So we're utilizing our Discovery Kitchen at that location to create a lot more prepared foods. Folks are wanting to come in, grab something and go, have the ability to have a nourishing fresh meal at home. That is going to be expanded quite considerably at the Sandy location within the next couple of months. If any of you have been to our Lovejoy market, we have a very extensive prepared foods department there. So we'll be taking the lessons learned from that and implementing those in Sandy with our chefs and our Discovery Kitchen. Virtual classes. So this has been interesting for us. One of the most popular things about the special offerings was the ability to provide free nutrition and culinary classes to our shoppers. We have culinary mentors, nutrition mentors. We had a lot of classes happening throughout the week, days and evenings. And certainly that has been severely impacted by the inability, A, to, gather, and B, to remove masks, to taste great food. So we've just recently started offering classes and mini videos on our website using our wonderful culinary mentor team and nutrition team in our Discovery Kitchen to create a series of classes that are available for folks free. So if you go to our website now, we've added a classes component, an online component, a calendar where you can link in and participate in our classes online. We're super excited about that. It's new for us, so we're just putting all those pieces together. Also, in terms of the future, we are in the midst, as I said, of making quite a few changes to the floor plan and the flow in the Sandy market. I'm going to share some pictures with you in just a minute of what that's looking like. But we continue to add new brands. One of the things that's been very positive for us is the fact that we are locally owned and we do have the ability to provide products, especially critical products like organic meat, dairy, cheese, directly to our markets through our own distribution channels, which is essentially small little refrigerated vans. So that has served us very, very well during this time because we haven't had to interrupt our supply chain in order to offer those and have those products available in the market. So I think we've just been in a really unusual and positive and lucky space that we have been able to maintain the quality of the products that we have available, the breadth of the products that we have available, and maintain our staff and our team because there has been a need for grocery markets and products. So we are expanding. We will be opening 2 more locations sometime this year. We're super excited to be able to continue our mission to have nourishing foods classes and our own brands and products available to all of Portland and beyond, Portland area. And continuing to find ways to, show people skills to cook at home. So that is our mission, and we continue strongly in that direction. So I'm going to move into some specific slides about the Sandy Market. So the coffee bar, for example, will no longer have that. That space is going to be taken over with a much more refrigerated and freezer space for the prepared foods and our brands. It just wasn't feasible for folks to be lining up in the store, obviously, to grab a cup of coffee. So that was one major decision that's affected the footprint of the store. Our nutrition classroom is also being opened up and converted to a separate space for prepared foods and to-go items. So you can see in this slides that there is a lot more room. Obviously, the very familiar directional arrows and the spacing for where to stand and all that kind of thing were things that we needed to implement in the stores. What you will also see is a different type of shelf space in here where we're adding more products and just creating higher shelf space within the market. We'll also be adding coolers and freezer spaces. And I just want to emphasize that the thing that says frozen on there is not what exactly it's going to look like at the Sandy Market, because that's all in progress now. For those of you who may have been in recently, we've got a lot of staging areas and a lot of stuff. So we're doing this incrementally so we don't interrupt the ability of folks to come in and shop.
Mary, thank you so much for this wonderful display of what you're doing. And it sounds like you hit the ground running with this whole new opportunity with COVID.
We have
There's
definitely
one question that came up on the
Sure.
chat line. It says, how are the prepared foods advertised?
I'm sorry, you broke up right there.
Okay,
How are
the
we?
prepared foods advertised?
When they're available, they will be, you will be advertising them primarily via social media. And we also have a flyer, and we'll be doing some more outreach to the neighborhood, letting you know what's available and when. As I said, that's probably a couple of months out in terms of being able to consistently supply, because we're converting the kitchen to more of a prepared foods commercial style kitchen. So, that's going to require a little bit more planning. But yes, you will know what's on the menu, what's available that day, either through our website or through social media and through other outreach and flyers and advertising that we're putting in place at the moment. Another one for those of you who are coming in, this bottom slide, there'll be some additional things being added to the produce department. So there'll be more like the, we'll still have the produce wall, but we'll have some additional display areas and an expansion of the produce department. We've got a wonderful guy that we recently hired to oversee all of our produce, who has a lot of experience and is building new displays and expanding that department in all of our markets.
I just love your shop.
Oh, thank you. We
So,
appreciate that
yeah,
so much.
it's just an easy walk from my house to get there, and everything is so fresh. It's great.
Thank you. This is just to give you a sense of how we're converting what was pretty central to our design. On the top slide, you see the meal stations, which were the big posters that had the product right with them. We've really found that that takes up a lot of floor space. So we have been pivoting to develop what you see below that, which is a recipe inspiration wall. So it's still our recipes that we're developing, having vetted by our nutritionists, just a different configuration without the actual products being connected. Because
Mary, we have Blair Chow that's going to be speaking about Zen Hong following you here.
Hi, Blair.
Hi. Hello.
And so thank you so much for your presentation, Mary. Yeah, Blair Chow
Great.
with
I'll just
Zen
end
Hong.
with. All right, I'm going to just end with our new manager, Dave Fennell, who looks forward to seeing all of you. He was our assistant manager at Sandy when we opened, and now
Okay.
he's been promoted to manager. So we hope
Thank
to
you so
see
much, Mary. Okay,
Absolutely.
Blair.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for taking your a bit of time out of your busy time of the night restaurant.
At work. So as you can tell, the background, we're our dining area.
Yes. So how is Zen Hong doing? You're one of our premier Chinese restaurants here in our neighborhood. So
Of course, we got hit 20% down, but that's better than other restaurant where I heard it's 80%. So we're fine. So
did you have to lay off any of your staff because you're not serving?
2 waitress and a dishwasher because there's obviously no dishes to wash.
Yeah, it makes sense. And so your sales have gone down like 20%, you said?
Yes, and I think positive, and so I'm fine at 20%. You know, I'm not happy, but I think positive compared to other restaurants. You know,
Yeah.
I'm much better off than they are.
Yeah, you have a pretty complete menu online, so that's pretty positive as well.
Thank you. So I guess I should talk about, I only have 2 minutes, I know. So my main concern is about parking. And then when I drove to Foster, where they changed from 4 lanes to 2 lanes.
Yes.
They still allow parking for business, but why is it that the city wants to have no parking on Sandy? That's my main concern. Why can't we compromise and be like Foster Street?
That's a good point. I'm thinking they may actually allow parking on the south side, but not the north side. But we don't know that yet. So that's going to be a tug of war between the businesses of which side is going to be without parking.
Oh, because the letter specifically said no street parking allowed. And that freaked me out. As I said, because 6 other business on the block of my block too, we all share the same parking on street parking.
Wow.
So they're stressed out too. And COVID's not helping. And now this, we don't know what's in store in the future for us.
Yeah.
And I guess that's my only point is can we compromise? You know, I know the city wants to improve Portland, and of course I want Portland to be better. But can we all compromise 2 lanes? I can handle, but allow us to have some parking.
And what Blair is talking about, folks, is the Rose Lane project on Sandy Boulevard, where the city is proposing to establish 2 through lanes for cars and then 2 bus lanes at the major intersections. And so that it reduces on-street parking as well at throughout the entire area from Hollywood all the way to 82nd. So it's going to be, oh yeah, more than that.
No street parking at all.
Wow.
So that's my main concern. But if they can do one side parking and one other side not parking, I think I could still survive. But I might have to have no more dining, only takeout.
Okay.
And that's the extreme for me.
Yeah. Morrow mentions on the chat that Foster Road's change was so positive for those of us who work down there. But she does agree that parking would be ideal. And I think it's especially hard on that hillside because you're on that west facing hill of Sandy Boulevard where there isn't any side street to park on. It makes it very difficult.
And there's one also thing after pre-COVID pandemic, I noticed at 5 o'clock is like rush hour because I realized people coming from downtown cut through Sandy to get to the 205 to get to Vancouver.
Yes.
So it is a nightmare at 5 o'clock. So, and they want to change from 4 lanes to 2 lanes for rush hour. That's might as well change 205 to 1 lane only at 5 o'clock.
It will definitely have an impact on folks traveling this route, which may be good or may be bad. You know, if they squeeze out to go to onto I-84, that would be fine. But if they're going through the neighborhoods, that's not going to be so good.
And another customer told me when people get stressed like that, they drive dangerously. And that's a safety hazard if you change things. So sorry, I have to go back to work because this is my rush hour.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your points, and we will keep it in mind as we go through the Rose Lane project here on behalf of you for the neighborhood.
I think my main concern is just let's compromise. Right. Everybody take a step back. Then that's my main goal. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for being here, Blair.
Hi, thanks. Thank you.
Is Prescott Allen with us?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Prescott. I'm at the New Deal Cafe, and we're located at 53rd Northeast Halsey Street. We've been there since about 2006, and I know that since that's when my son was born. So same anniversary as him. We serve breakfast and lunch, and we've always prided ourselves on being a gathering spot for the neighborhood. 2019 had been a great year for us, and 2020 was looking great. And then, of course, COVID hit, and we were like all the other restaurants and businesses out there. Like, what does this mean for us? How do we survive? How are we going to keep our staff and customers safe? Nobody knew those answers back then, so we basically ended up closing on March 17th. And at that time, we just did not know when we were going to reopen again. We donated all of our food at the time. We gave staff a severance, and we just shut the doors.
Wow.
It was a hard process. My business partner and I, we also own the Laurelhurst Theater down on Burnside, and that business is still closed, obviously, since it's a movie theater. And yeah, you always hear how hard it is to open a business, but it's equally as hard to actually close your business down, and it was definitely a challenge for us. The first 2 months we were closed, we did some remodeling. We did the bathrooms, and we did some deferred maintenance that we had not done for a while. And of course, we applied for PPP money and some other grants that were out there. I will say that when we did get the first round of PPP, and that was really beneficial in having us be able to reopen again. That really made a huge difference for us. We opened in May, and we've been open since then. Right now, we're only open for takeout only and outdoor dining. And the good news is we finally got our tent, so we're happy about that. So people can actually sit outside underneath the covered area with a heater. In order for us to stay open, we had to do a number of things. We had to basically streamline our menu. We simplified our ordering and our purveyors that we bought from. We went to credit card only. We stopped taking cash. We updated our websites so that we could people could directly order online. And then we changed our hours of operations. We used to always be open 7 days a week, and now we're basically open Thursday through Monday. And we like to be open 7 days a week, but 5 days a week just made more sense for us. And business has been, depending on the day, it's up and down. We've definitely been hurt by COVID. Our goal right now is just to take it day by day, We have an amazing support from our regular customers, and our neighbors are really what keep us going. We've had a lot of the same customers for the last 15 years that used to come in every day, order the same item. You know, they'd walk in and you instantly knew what they're going to have. We kind of miss that for sure. We have applied for the next round of PPP money, and we're cautiously optimistic that with the vaccines rolling out, that later this spring, maybe early summer, you know, we can start getting back to a little bit more of a normal type of business for us. It might not be as good as it was, but we're hoping that it at least picks up some more. I just want to say thanks for all the support from our neighbors that are coming in and are visiting us. That's super appreciative, and it's what keeps us going. And yeah, we just hope to see you guys at the cafe.
Did you have to lay off any of your staff because of COVID?
Yeah, we ended up laying off about half,
Wow.
and a lot of them are still laid off. We're hoping that we can rehire them back as we get busier. But I know that we're in contact with them fairly regularly, and we're hopeful, and they're hopeful. So,
do you have a delivery service?
We don't do. We have we work with Postmates. Delivery services are kind of love and hate relationships with restaurants. You know, they provide a service, but they do make things difficult at times. So it's difficult. We prefer people to just to order it themselves and come pick it up.
Yeah, it's cheaper for everybody.
It is, and actually, it's kind of nice just to be able to see our old customers too and stuff. Even if you're waving from 6 feet away and saying hi to them, it's kind of nice to at least to connect with them.
We're trying to come to you every Sunday now for breakfast. So
I appreciate it.
Great potatoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that we can do to help you during this time?
I mean, my biggest takeaway is just to really support your small businesses that are out there. I mean, my family and I, we always, once a week, we always try and pick a new restaurant or whatever to go to. And we're fortunate we can do that. But it's just really important that I think, you support your small local businesses that are in your neighborhood. So yeah, just keep doing that.
I like your new canopy in the back. It's really nice.
Yeah, it helps a little bit.
It's great. Okay, any questions for us? Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's great to hear from you and good to see your face. And I know you're taking time out of a very busy schedule. They were saying that they rarely see you down there because you're so busy elsewhere. So
yeah, we're trying to, we've got a few things that we're trying to figure out.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. At this point, we're going to talk to Libby Winter. And is anyone here from the Hollywood Hub?
So let's see, I'll go ahead and do introductions real quick.
Okay, you want to do that for us? Okay, thank you.
I'll turn it over to our team. Hi, everyone. My name is Libby Winter. I'm a community affairs rep with TriMet. Thanks for having me on a snowy day. Sometimes my last name fits in, sometimes it doesn't. But we're here today to talk about the Hollywood Hub project. I have with me Guy Ben, who is our transit-oriented development manager at TriMet. Ben Sturs, who's the project manager for Bridge Housing, as well as Michelle Traver, who is the TriMet Art and Transit Program Director. So we'll go ahead and get started. We're gonna kick it off, and Guy will be leading the slides, and I will turn it over to him.
Thank you, Libby, and good evening, everybody, and thank you for having us. So hopefully you can all see the presentation in front of you. We've got about, I think it's about 10 slides to run through, and I think it's at 20 minutes, Libby, and then open up for questions. But if you have anything pressing as we go through, then please feel free to interrupt us. I can see,
So let me just point out, people can put questions in the chat line on the Zoom, as well as in the comment line if they're watching on YouTube. And we have people watching both.
great.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, so good evening and thank you for having us. So yeah, as Libby said, I'm Guy Ben. I'm the program manager for transit-oriented development at TriMet. Libby has done a great job. She's one of our community affairs reps and setting up this evening. And also want to welcome Ben Sturz, who's a project manager for Bridge, and Michelle, who is our arts coordinator. So I'm going to jump into the presentation, and then when we get into the details on the affordable housing building, I'll pass it over to Ben and we'll take it from there. So the Hollywood Hub introductions, we've run through those. So the vision, you're obviously all very familiar with the Hollywood Transit Center. Starting about roughly 2.5 years ago now, my sort of colleagues at TriMet and within the real estate team, really following the events of May 2017, really started to look at the transit center and see how do we modernize it and improve it so that we don't have the safety security issues that are encountered at the transit center, and how do we make it work best for the community, and came up with a vision for the transit center, which was basically to reposition it so that it could become a hub for transit, for equity, and for the community. And to do that, what we did is, first off, we had an architect run some feasibility, some initial studies on what might be able to be done at the transit center. And then we instructed Cushman and Wakefield to basically do a marketing of the transit center to identify development partners who could help us realize this vision. And we went through a formal marketing procedure. We received a number of, I think it was about half a dozen or so approaches from the market after full exposure. And ultimately ended up selecting a joint venture that was led by Bridge Housing, looking to redevelop the transit center. And initially, back in sort of late 2018, early 2019, the plan was to do an affordable housing building and a market rate building. We sort of gelled on the vision, and then we entered into exclusive negotiation agreement with Bridge. No one forecasts the pandemic, and earlier on, or sort of the beginning of last year, it became very apparent that it wasn't going to be possible to deliver any market rate housing in the current conditions. So what happened is that we spoke with Bridge and their market rate partner, and we decided to sort of bifurcate the project into two pieces. And the reason for that was that because of the bond measure to secure or the past for Metro affordable housing bonds, there's financing available to deliver affordable housing. And having seen Bridge's vision, we didn't really want to lose that opportunity to deliver affordable housing at the site. So we've been working with Bridge for the last 12 plus months to really deliver a vision for the site and move it forward so that we can start development and sort of get halfway through to the future vision for the transit center. You can see from the slide, there are a number of sort of key pillars to our vision. One of which is providing much needed affordable housing. We want to create a center for the community. We want to improve safety at the transit center, and there's also, you'll be familiar with the transit line itself. The Banfield alignment. It actually was built in 1986. So that infrastructure is now 36 years old. And so there's certain elements of that infrastructure that need to be replaced and updated, including a substation. And we also want to address the pedestrian ramp and stairs that exist there at the station. So as part of the process, and tonight is obviously sort of part of this engagement process, is that we started, back in the summer of last year, with an initial outreach. And hopefully many of you should have received a postcard through the mail. Obviously COVID and lockdowns were making outreach extremely hard. And we're now obviously a lot more familiar with Zoom and other online meetings. But we started with a postcard. We wanted to inform the neighborhood, residents, community, what we're envisaging, what we're trying to do at the transit center. And then since then, we've been progressively, working on the project and trying to keep community involved and informed as to what's going on, and taking your comments and feedback so that we can incorporate them into the project. We've been working, Bridge and TriMet have been working in lockstep together. And we've been working with an advisor called Tri-Excellence, which is run by Dr. Stephen Holt, who's basically been helping us on how do we make sure that we apply the correct racial equity lens to the projects, and how do we make sure that we include all members of the community. And we also need to, Michelle, you could speak to it as well, but we're also involving the families of the May 2017 events to make sure that as we go through the process, that they're kept informed of what's intended to do and how we intend to reposition the property. So we now stand, obviously it's the beginning of 2021, and we've made good progress. We've done a lot of work with Bridge, and we have identified, the sort of the scale of the project, and we've identified the funding, both from TriMet's position and Bridge has identified where it's going to source its funding, so it has to make some applications to deliver its project. So what we'll present now is really what we're looking for. But before we go into that, I'm going to pass it over to Ben, and he can give a little bit of background about Bridge and then move on to the project itself.
Thanks, Guy. Good evening, everybody. Again, Ben Sturz for Bridge Housing. We are a nonprofit, and it initially started in San Francisco. It's been in operation for 38 years. We are the largest nonprofit developer of affordable housing on the West Coast. We are a long-term owner and property manager of the housing we build, and then we oftentimes contract out the service provision for our residents. We are led here locally by Kurt Krieger, who's our executive vice president and working exclusively with this team. And we have offices in both Portland and Seattle, and we're looking at a little more than 1,100 homes that we've now constructed and operated in Oregon, really in just the last 8 years. Go to the next slide. This is one of our latest developments that was just constructed and now is in getting leased up and occupied. It was built in 2019, called the Vera. It's a 13-story development in the River Place area, so Lower McAdam urban renewal area, kind of where the streetcar line goes from River Place around the bend and cuts south towards South Waterfront. This is a project with 203 apartments to give you a sense of the scale that we develop at. It was a partnership similarly to Hollywood being with TriMet. This one was with Prosper Portland, who had owned the land, and then we worked with the Portland Housing Bureau to finance it, and now has just recently been fully occupied as of 2021. Bridge has a real experience in doing equitable transit-oriented development up and down the West Coast, from Metro LA and BART in the Bay Area, and even Sound Transit recently in Seattle. So this was a good fit for us in responding. On the top left, you can see one of the developments we work with in Oakland on a BART stop. The one on the top right is the Abigail in the Pearl District. That's a mixed income project that we developed about 5 years ago. On the lower left is the Songbird that just got constructed. It is currently in lease up on North Williams and Tillamook. And then in 2019, we finished Cornelius Place, which is two stories of senior housing above the Cornelius Library, right on Highway 8 in Washington County. So you're seeing now where we're doing a preliminary feasibility and massing in conjunction with Holst Architecture, who's our architect on this project. And this development was initially at 7 stories, and we began to look at a little more than 111 apartments at the time. And as we began to think about what we would be programming on the site and really including more parking, we got to the point where we really saw economies of scale, and really just recently, because we presented to your Land Use and Transportation Committee not that long ago and really said, we're not at a stage where we're thinking of a higher scale to really get the density we'll need on the site to make it worth the while to develop this site. We're now at 213 affordable homes in a 13-story development, similar in scale to what you just saw at the Vera. We have active ground floor spaces in terms of our lobby, a community meeting room, some play area for children, meeting space for service providers to meet with some of the residents on site. The yellow square you see that bumps up against Halsey would essentially be a phase 2 that TriMet would have a future proffering for. And so on the south and western edge of the site is where you see the building that we would be developing on the site. It would be 100% affordable to families with children at or below 60% of the area median income. And then on the left side is really a Paseo or Market Street that we really proposed being a good active ground floor space that connects both Halsey to the pedestrian ramp, but also could be programmed over time. And then so Bridge would then eventually be the long-term manager and owner of that building, and then work with TriMet, who would essentially own the site still. We would be on a ground lease situation and move forward with then doing a phase 2 at a later date.
So, so what you see now here is a plan view of the sites. So this is obviously, you've got the Union Pacific Railroad, the MAX station, and 84 is obviously off to the left-hand side of the slide. What I want to point out, there are a couple of things here. So the yellow sort of area that was on the previous slide is shown marked out here, and this is a traditional quarter block site. And be pretty clear is that, when we started this project, we were thinking to try and deliver, a mixed income project that had affordable housing and market rate housing. We have no plans to do anything with this quarter block site until the affordable building is either near or completed, and even then we may wait until market conditions are favorable enough to move forward. There's a number of things that sort of probably key takeaways from this slide. Firstly, because we're building on the transit center, all the bus operations are going to be moved into Halsey Street. And it's something that TriMet's done before, and we'll go into more about changes to bus routes on the following slide. But in order to sort of accommodate that and to make sure that the traffic impacts are minimal, we're going to be constructing a third lane to Halsey Street in front of the site. That will act as a bus stop for the 75 before it heads north on 42nd Avenue. We're also going to be rephasing the signal on the 42nd Avenue and Halsey Street junction so that it's more efficient. And that should again help with traffic. We have, you see this ramp drawing here. This is purely illustrative. So we have just instructed architects to basically do a fresh study of what are the options for a new ramp. And one of the reasons that I talked earlier to the infrastructure at the Hollywood Transit Center being 36 years old, or 35 years old, the existing ramp we know doesn't work for anybody with a cargo bike or with a bike trailer, and the stairs that exist there, are not, they don't meet today's ADA compliance, American Disabilities Act compliance. So when we redesign these stairs and this ramp, we're going to do it in a way that works for cyclists, works for people with disabilities. And we haven't got I don't know what that is going to ultimately look like. It could be, and one of the options that we're looking at and we're trying to work through is actually rather than a stair and ramp structure, we just have an inclined walkway that gradually slopes down to Halsey Street. So we're working through these details. It's still early days, but we obviously want to get feedback from the community as to any preferences, any sensitive spots, so make sure that we can incorporate those concerns into our assessment and our solution. Another thing to note from this slide very quickly, I don't want to get too much detail, but One of the reasons we have to rebuild this ramp is in order to accommodate the bridge housing building. It has to sit sort of behind this purple line for financing reasons, something that is typical, sort of unique to this site. But we're also building a new substation chamber. I'm going to install a new substation underneath the ramp structure, which will power the light rail. That's going to improve reliability and speed on the light rail, and it replaces the existing substation that you may or may not be familiar with, sits on the site in the south west corner here. So there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of stuff that's still to be determined. But you know, we're cognizant. We've spoken with Bike Portland. We've spoken obviously with the Hollywood Neighborhood Association and other groups that have all said this is a ramp. There's obviously some concerns about the ramp structure, and you know, we're working through those to hopefully come to a good solution. The final thing that I mentioned on this, and it will come up later, but one of the other aspects with regards to, you know, the reconstruction of the ramp structure is that you know, we're going to be removing the existing ramp. That also forms a temporary memorial to the May 2017 events. And so Michelle and her team are going to be running through a whole process in terms of community engagement, working with artists, working with the families to create a permanent memorial at the site to the May 2017 events. This is a rendering, you know, very early days, as you can imagine, you know, from looking from the I-84 pedestrian bridge. You know, and again, what we'll be doing is to improve the customer experience and basically, you know, improve connectivity and wayfinding, as we're going to be putting new signs. We'll be putting destination boards at the top, you know, at the bus stop, so that you can see when the trains are arriving and you can see when the buses are arriving to make sure that it's easy to transfer. Equity, you know, this obviously, we started this project before, you know, the events of last summer and the riots across Portland and elsewhere. You know, it's a key focus for us. It's a key focus for the TriMet TOD program. It's a key focus for bridge housing. And, you know, we have Tri-Excellence on board, and Ben has already spoken to, you know, the number of units. So we're trying to maximize the number of affordable housing units, the affordability of those units, and also, I don't know whether Ben, you want to talk about the fact that some of those units are going to be permanent supportive housing.
Yeah, so to really fully finance this project, we are going to be pursuing Portland Housing Bureau funds this summer. They're going to be coming from the Metro Regional Affordable Housing Bonds that was just passed a few years ago. In doing so, a good chunk of them will be both at 30% area median income, and then we're looking at a good number of them to be for permanent supportive housing. And so we would have both a culturally specific resident service provider on site, providing resident services to all the residents. And then for those units that are permanent supportive housing, have a permanent supportive housing provider on site to also meet with those clients that have typically higher barriers in terms of accessing housing.
And to add to that, so the other thing that with regards to the equity piece and the community piece is that we have, and Bridge in particular, has been leading with discussions with community groups who will basically operate the Paseo and and what is currently the sort of the phase 2 site. That's like to be available so that the community can use that and community events can be held on the site. And you know, we can support the community, whether that's through providing spaces for pop-up businesses or meetings or events, or, you know, so on and so forth. So, you know, it's very much a focus for us in the project. And there we go. So to community, you know, I've mentioned a little bit about the memorial. You know, as Michelle's on, and if she wants to jump in, but that's, yeah, we have a whole process to go through that and make sure that that's done appropriately. And what we want to do with this project, you know, Bridge is a leading affordable housing developer, is we really want to create an exemplar project that really shows, you know, cohesion, shows tolerance within the community, and, you know, through the sort of incorporating the community, providing affordable housing, providing equity. We want to sort of create this flagship space that people are proud to come to and want to spend time at. Finally, transit. So from a transit perspective, there are a couple of things that, key points to note is that the services to and from the Hollywood Transit Center, in effect, with some minor changes to the bus services, are going to remain unchanged. Really, the key changes is going to be the locations of the bus stops. The light rail services will basically continue throughout. And we have the architect that's working on the ramp design is also providing a solution for a temporary ramp so that access to the Max station, to Laurelhurst, is uninterrupted throughout the whole construction period. So there's no need to go elsewhere, or there's no need for bus bridging. With regards to the bus services, the plan as it stands at the moment, and we're still working with PBOT sort of through the details here and through our own engineering, construction, and sort of program management, is that the buses, the plan is to move them off site either at end of this year or early next year, which allows for the development to start on the ramp structure and the project to move forward.
Guy, I have a couple questions that maybe you can address before you move on.
Sure.
One was apparently there is some parking on site. There's going to be 40 parking spaces at the ground floor and some extensive bike parking. How do you envision them getting in and out of the site?
Yeah, I'll go back. So maybe Ben wants to talk about it because it's really within the bridge.
There's a driveway that you can see. He's got his cursor on it that will then access from Halsey Street to the parking garage.
Okay.
And then turn around. So that would be the space. There'd be a loading space there as well. That would be the primary egress for folks coming in and off of the parking on the site. We're looking at doing parking stackers, which are difficult, expensive to operate, but would enable us to have more parking than we typically have in a structured parking situation. We've heard from both the community and from folks internally at Bridge who know that we have units for families with children, that we needed more parking. And so really, we're looking at least 40. It really is an increase to really address the fact that there needs to be some ability for our residents to have cars on site. At the same time, this is a transit-oriented development, and that's why we're also really focusing on bike parking on the site for our residents as well.
Is there any way that that dashed line could move and you could have a more of a square structure there, or is that basically a financing or property boundary?
That's a HUD-driven line called the difficult to develop area. And the area that our site is on, to the south of it and the west of it, means that it's more costly to develop there. And as a result, they make it easier for us to finance with tax credits. And I know it's not ideal. It's not ideal for us too. We would like a double loaded corridor if possible. We would design the site a whole lot different, but it also makes it more feasible and more financeable if we were really to follow that line. And that's why we are. It makes it able to go to 13 stories and have the amount of units on site that we would put on, and make it, 60% median income and below. It would be really hard to do all those things if it was outside that line.
Yeah, we would love that line not to be there. But we've spoken with Home Forward, which is the city's sort of affordable housing development arm. And they've come across it in the past, and they've never been to Washington to try and see whether you can move it. Because the risk, if you go to sort of Washington, D.C., say we want to move this line, is that they could move it in the wrong direction, and then all of a sudden you can't deliver any affordable housing. So it's
very strange to have it all bisect the site in particular. That's the really odd thing that you see here.
Also, it's going to be pretty tall. You're going to have elevators, correct?
Yeah, the building will have to, I think anything over 4 stories has to have an elevator now. So yeah, absolutely we'll have elevators. I think, is it 2 or 3? I don't know, Ben, you know the transfer line.
We typically put in 2 elevators even in 4-story buildings. And the idea being is that we want to make these buildings visitable. That not only can residents be able to go on any floor, say they have laundry or they want to get to the community room and they have accessibility needs, but they can also have guests, folks that actually visit them, and they may have physical needs to be able to go then on every floor. And so at least 2 elevators on the building. And then I think there was also a question about the elevator on the ramp.
Yeah, so that will come, that's part of the architect's scope of work, is to look at all options. Is that, do we create an inclined walkway? Do we do a stair and ramp structure that's not like this? It's more, it hasn't got switchbacks because they're the issue more than anything else. Or do we put in stair and an elevator? I can tell you that, on the whole, TriMet is less we're not so keen on putting in external elevators, and that causes a big problem. And they're less user friendly to bikes. But unfortunately it's all a factor of cost. And so TriMet is, with replacement of the substation and other work to the site, including transformer chambers and other infrastructure, we're putting many millions of dollars into this project, as is Bridge, and it can only go so far. So we're it's finding the right balance, and we're gonna, it will be going through design review, as will the building. So really today is just to keep the community informed and updated. And in due course, as we go through these review processes, there's obviously further recourse for the community and stakeholders to get engaged and say, listen, this doesn't work, or we need X, Y, and Z.
Okay, great, thank you. You're getting a lot of commentary on the chat line about the bus stops. So
yeah, let me go
I'll
on.
just let you keep on going.
Yeah. So I think we did transit. Yeah. So the bus stops. So this is the building here shown, and you can see the sort of 2 phases, for want of a better word. The black circles with white insides are new bus stops, and then the black ones with crosses through are bus stops that are going to be removed. Just to sort of really simplify this diagram, it's quite to talk through it. What the main change to the bus services is that the 77, which currently goes north on 42nd Avenue and then goes east along Broadway and then back down on 47th, that is going to be rerouted so that it just runs along Halsey Street. So there's going to be some stops removed from Broadway. We have spoken to Hollywood East and the Home Forward that operate that building there. It's our operations team. It improves the efficiency of that line. It speeds it up a little bit. And candidly, we think that there is limited, negative connotations to that reroute. It should actually, hopefully, we're very cognizant of the traffic issues that exist on Halsey Street today, and we're hoping that will improve traffic. On that front, as part of these bus route changes and also part of the development, we have 2 separate traffic studies that are in process. One is simply looking at the impact of the development on traffic levels in the neighborhood. And the second one is looking at the changes to the Northeast 42nd and Halsey Street junction and intersection and the bus stops and what that impact has on traffic on Halsey Street. Because the last thing we want, we're operating buses, we don't want to worsen the traffic situation here, that's for certain. The bus stops are moving, they are moving further away from the MAX station. That's fact. We can't avoid that. And that's why, we're spending time and money and resources to identify the best solution for the ramp structure and the connection between the two. Because again, we have our community, we have a committee for accessible transit. We have other groups that we're reporting to that we want to make sure that, the transit center works for all stakeholders. I believe there was another question that came through an email about this junction here and the bus movements to 75 heading north. I've actually sent an email to our operations team this evening to see whether or not it needs to be incorporated into the traffic engineering study we're doing for the Halsey Street junction. But it was I can't see the chat, so I can't see any other questions.
There's a question about the farmers market moving. I think we may have mentioned that the programming could be hosted on site at the Paseo for the farmers market, but we don't envision it moving if it didn't need to. And then there was also something about the view, the design on I-84. I think you're really just looking at massing at this point. We are not fully engaged on design. It would be a much more beautiful building. We're just trying to show scale. And so that was one of the other comments I wanted to make sure we responded to.
Okay. And
I had a couple corrections on that bus site diagram. There is not going to be a bus pull out in front of the 24-hour fitness. I think Libby corrected that from our Land Use and Transportation Committee meeting.
Yeah, no, Tamara, I verified that one. So that will be the 77 bus stop.
Okay, it will be in front
Yes.
of the, okay. So currently there's no parking on front of that place. So you would be taking up a lane and a half with a bus, right?
So in oh, you can't see that. So in front of the where it says 24-hour fitness on there.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is one of the spots that they are looking at for the potential bus stop for the 77.
Okay. I just, wanted to reaffirm that when you have a bus going down Halsey, they take up 2 lanes. And so if you're talking about a bus pulling over, it won't pull over far enough for cars, the second lane, to get around them. So I see this as somewhat of a problem, especially with the off ramp there from I-84. It's crazy. All right.
yeah, okay, that noted. Part of this, we have, candidly, we've still got a lot of work and discussions to have with PBOT about this, and it's part of the reason, one of the reasons we haven't got there yet is because we want to have the engineering study done first so that we have something material to talk to. And we have talked about it with our operations guys, our operations team. The challenge is that there's only a certain amount. I would love to have both all bus stops in front of our site on the extra lane that we're constructing. But buses, by geometry, they have to have a certain amount of space to pull in, pull out. So we're trying to sort of work that into it. The other aspect from a traffic perspective is that it's not efficient to put a bus stop unless it's sort of out of the street as we're proposing. We can't put a bus stop in front of a light, because then if the bus is waiting for passengers and the light changes, then it causes more traffic. So there's a lot of work to do, and we'll keep to sort of run through that. And there is a separate, our service planning and operations team will run and are running a separate engagement about the bus route changes.
Great. Good. Thank you.
So a separate view of the project. This is more of an aerial view. You'll see here as well, here's the entrance to Target, which exists. It's actually on our property, but they have a permanent easement, which unfortunately is somewhat cast in stone. But we do think over time, firstly, that the phase 2 site will, it's going to be used for construction staging during the building of the affordable housing. So that'll prevent traffic and issues on Halsey Street. When it's no longer needed, and if it's assuming it's not sort of being redeveloped, it's going to be used, we think, as an interim community use for this site. And then ultimately, long term, our vision is to make sure that when this phase 2 parcel is developed, that sort of ground floor space is as open and as community focused and centric, whether it's like an open air market or something like that. So it forms part of, sort of builds on the vision for the site. And that is sort of it. There's some other points here, which are really talking points, but I think, we're happy to just take any further questions. And I also believe, there's a website for the property, which is hollywoodhubpdx.com. And you can reach us either through that website, or you can email us directly at trimet.org/TOD or on that phone number.
When you're going to have the transportation review of these new stops, are we going to hear about that when that happens?
You should do, yeah. I mean, the first step for us is to sort of establish with PBOT what we can and we cannot do. And then our service planning and engagement team will update any proposed changes that we've already sort of announced, so that there is a chance for feedback, Title VI assessment, and that will occur before any changes are made.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, are there any other questions, folks? I don't see any. Okay, one thing that I was thinking of is are you going to have reader boards that show when the train is going to be arriving, that people can see when they're getting off the bus on Halsey?
Yes, we are, is the short answer. And candidly, what we're also trying to do, although it's a little bit of mission creep, is that if I've secured a budget for the infrastructure works, and if I can find some cost savings and identify a way to basically save some money, I want to spend some money on basically refreshing the Hollywood Max station. There's no promises there because I've got a budget to work within, but obviously we would like to. We don't want to deliver a nice new transit center and infrastructure and then still have a tired Max station that could do with a refresh.
That's considerate. Thank you.
We would also be open to putting in the reader boards within our building to add it for our residents as well.
Great. Excellent. Okay, seeing no additional questions. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think everybody here has got a lot of concern about the traffic, but I think more will be revealed as you get the traffic study done.
Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to seeing that affordable housing, though. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kate Drennan and Nicholas Starren. They're going to be talking about what is happening with the Broadway trolley and with the idea of that it will eventually come to the 42nd station there on Halsey. So I would like to see if either Kate or Nicholas are with us. Hello.
Kate's there. She's looking for her mute button.
Kate, are you still?
Yeah, I found it.
Yay!
Thanks. And I just want to make sure that I had the screen shared. So I think it's up on my screen, but I need to share it with you all.
Welcome, Kate.
Thank you.
And it won't be Nicholas tonight. It'll be Barry Manning instead.
Yay, Barry.
Hi, Tamara.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good.
Excellent.
Okay, can you guys see my screen? Did I get it working right? Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I know we have about 18 minutes, so we're just going to kind of speed through this. So Barry and I are co-leaders of a project we're calling the Montgomery Park to Hollywood Transit and Land Use Development Strategy, which is quite a mouthful. So we call it MP2H for short. So let's see if I can get this to advance. So the Montgomery Park study is really looking at both opportunities, cost, feasibility, and interest in developing a high quality transit investment and transit supportive land use changes in Northwest Portland and then also in inner Northeast Portland. And really this project is primarily about Northwest Portland, to quote Guy, to be quite candid. I would say it's 70 to 85% really focused on the industrial area of Northwest Portland with a little bit of funding to really study some potential future transit alignments in Northeast and some other potential land use changes or zoning ideas that BPS wanted to study in Northeast Portland. And so Oh, I can see that I'm advancing on a timer. So while we have less to update you on for Northeast, that's because the majority of the work is really focused on Northwest Portland, but we do want to, keep you all apprised of what we're thinking. So this slide shows you our study area. Like I said, Montgomery Park there with the star is kind of the primary focus of the study. And that's because there's a lot of changes happening in that area. Montgomery Park being a very large employer. ESCO was a large industrial site that was a big employer for many years, but closed down a number of years ago, shut down, the site was razed. There are a bunch of empty parcels there that have changed ownership recently. So there's kind of a lot of changes in that neighborhood. And so the city is looking at whether some land use changes in that area coupled with a high quality transit investment, a streetcar, BRT or something similar would help sort of leverage the neighborhood to develop in a way that could have more jobs, housing, climate impacts for the city. So that's kind of a near term goal. There's more momentum there. There's interest from property owners there. There's interest from the city. But on the east side, the Hollywood Town Center, it's a town center in our comprehensive plan, and a streetcar to Hollywood Town Center has been something that we've identified in our regional transportation system plan, the city of Portland. It's kind of a long range goal for us. We don't know exactly how we would get there. We have 3 different alignments that we've kind of thought would make sense. There's one that's on Broadway Weidler. There's one on Sandy, and then there's one that's kind of a hybrid through Irving. And actually the next slide's we'll zoom in on those 3 in a second here. But the sort of outcomes for each of these on the west side, like I said, we're hoping to get further along. We're really looking there for specific zoning changes, specific land use changes, specific transportation system plan projects and updates to the grid there. A big part of this project is looking at an equitable development strategy, sort of what kind of community benefits could be derived from any land use or zoning changes that create that new value out of the upzoning. And so how do we as a city kind of help take part of that and reinvest it in the community in a way that benefits all Portlanders. So that's the west side. On the east side, it's really at a much higher level. We're kind of looking at those 3 different alignments and thinking about what are some urban design or development opportunities in this area? What are some of the land use and transportation opportunities and constraints that would accompany any of these changes? Like, are there certain alignments where zoning is not very, only goes back a half block, like on Broadway. So there's not a lot of redevelopment opportunities, kind of like it is where it's going to be versus, the Lloyd Center has been in the news a lot the last week, and what could happen with that, and would an investment could that be leveraged, in a decade or so to do something kind of interesting and exciting for the city? But, there are also a lot of constraints with all these areas. So we're looking at those as well. And the idea is that we want to identify, of those 3, we're kind of just taking a look and saying, does one of these rise to the top that in the future we would look more closely at this alignment, or is one to say, this one really doesn't work? What's the general interest from the community in terms of these alignments? What's interest from, adjacent property owners? Do they think this is a valuable investment or not? So we're kind of just doing some information gathering at this stage on the east side. And we've worked with some community-based organizations on the east side as well to hear back from some of the community out here. We're working with MISO, with the NAACP, and with the Urban League to all get to do focus groups and kind of hear from folks on the east side. So just a quick look at the 3 alignments that we're doing that information gathering on. So this is that first Sandy alignment. It's pretty straightforward. It goes up to Sandy, goes up Sandy to Hollywood. We have kind of 2 different prongs where it could tie into the existing streetcar system, one at Cooch and Burnside and one at Stark and Washington. So just kind of leaving options open of ways that it would tie into the existing system. This Irving Street is kind of an interesting but awkward alignment, to be quite frank. It ties into the existing system at Irving and then goes up Lloyd Boulevard, crosses the 12th Street Bridge, and then goes up Irving Street, where there are some interesting sites that will probably redevelop in the next decade or so that are largely underutilized or just might redevelop for one reason or another, and then links up and goes up Sandy. And then the third alignment that we've looked at is this Broadway Weidler couplet that goes up. It's kind of a more of a straight shot. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So those are the three. They all have, issues that we need to be overcome. They all have some opportunities. Like I said, we did an open house last summer where we did kind of a shred and dove into all three of these alignments and got some feedback from the community. People's opinions were pretty widespread. I think Sandy was the favorite amongst the alignments, but there are a lot of issues that were brought up. We certainly hear about traffic a lot. We know that there are other transit investments happening on Sandy and being piloted. So I do want to be frank that I think on this agenda, it was called like a trolley on Southeast Halsey Street. And we're not going to get to that place or anywhere near that place with this study. Again, we're kind of studying. We don't know if we will even, we don't know when a streetcar would get to Hollywood or if. There's a lot of analysis that needs to be done, a lot of data collection, a lot of consensus building that would need to happen. So again, it's kind of like more of a, let's gather some information and see if this is something that should carry forward down the line, maybe 10 years, maybe 15 years. A lot's going to change between now and then. So we're really just kind of like putting our finger in the air and seeing what we hear from that perspective. And we did want to do some economic analysis that I will let Barry talk about. Barry, I can just go forward. You can just kind of give me the sign to move forward.
Sure. So hi, folks. I'm Barry Manning. I'm with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, as Kate said, partnering with PBOT on this project. What I wanted to just share is some feedback we've heard from the community. As Kate said, we're really doing some outreach to find out what people's thoughts are about these different alignments, which ones work from their perspective, not a technical analysis per se, although we are having some economic work done and we are having our consultants look at some high-level transportation issues that might crop up that would be considerations. So as Kate said, we did what we called an urban design virtual open house this summer. Hopefully some of you were able to take that. It was on the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability's website. We had about 125 folks comment on the open house on the east side. So we thought we got pretty good response, and it's still up on our website, which is shown at the bottom left-hand side of the screen if you want to take a look at what we shared this summer. But we had a survey up and we asked people generally what they thought about the different alignments. And what we heard, as Kate said earlier, that the strongest preference of those three that we were studying was for the Sandy Boulevard alignment, followed by Broadway Weidler, and then Irving Street as a distant third. We heard questions raised overall about the expense and usefulness of a streetcar in some of these corridors versus other transit options. Most of those are served by bus, so there were some questions raised about whether or not it makes sense to introduce a streetcar service on these alignments at all. And then we also had some questions raised about the termination in the Hollywood district. Some early notions were that this would interface with the transit center. There's some traffic issues in Halsey, or in Hollywood rather, on Halsey. We've talked a little bit about that in the prior presentation. So there's some more work that needs to be done if we're going to move forward with this in the future on a terminus in Hollywood. So then for each of the alignments, Sandy Boulevard, there was some support for that, but again, questions about whether it was well enough served by buses. There were concerns expressed by community members about the potential for rising housing values and displacement of small businesses if a line were developed on Sandy. And I'm just giving you some highlights from this. There's a report online if you would like to look at that. It's on the webpage as well. And then we asked questions about zoning and whether or not higher density would be supported in the area. And generally, folks supported the notion of some strategic zoning changes to support development near the alignment, but there were also comments made about some of the existing new development that's happening on Sandy and questions about whether that fits in with the neighborhood. Go to the next slide. On the Irving to Sandy Boulevard alignment, that was a little bit harder for people to get their heads around. It runs through an area that's not on the beaten path, so to speak. It's between I-84, the Banfield, and Sandy Boulevard, a little bit tucked off, but a lot of development is happening in there. But many people didn't see the value in that line as it was very close to the Sandy alignment and felt that there was a fair amount of overlap there. And there were concerns about traffic congestion on those local streets in that district and the 12th Avenue Bridge and the freeway on-ramp. So those were some highlights of concerns we heard about Irving to Sandy. In Broadway and Weidler, a lot of folks felt that that alignment could take advantage of the development opportunity at the Lloyd Center. There is a lot of surface parking lot in that area, whether it's for movie theaters or malls. And the mall is in a state of transition right now. But others discussed development limitations on the line. And I think Kate alluded to this earlier. There are some very shallow lots along Broadway before you get into residential, single family to residential neighborhoods. So there's a question about how much development could really happen on Broadway to support a streetcar. So Kate also mentioned we talked to community-based organizations. We worked with 4 of them, 2 of them on the east side and 2 of them on the west side. On the east side, we work with MISO, which stands for Micro Enterprise Solutions of Oregon. They work with very small businesses, and they worked and focused with focus groups on women and minority-owned businesses in the area. And just some highlights from the work that they did in the focus groups. Those respondents favored Sandy followed by Broadway as an alignment preference. They were concerned about increasing rents and gentrification, I guess, if you will, in the district introduced by a potential streetcar. Again, impacts to traffic and business disruption. They were interested in planning for affordable housing, micro enterprise, and affordable commercial spaces, and how to involve local residents in doing that. So there was a very grassroots kind of level of interest with that group. And they also wanted to create opportunities for ownership and wealth building. They didn't want to see this become an opportunity for big developers only. We also partnered with the Hollywood Senior Center and the Urban League. Some of you may have actually received a survey from one of those groups in their study, and they asked similar questions to what we asked before. But in their findings, they felt strongest support for Broadway alignment, so slightly different finding there rather than Sandy. Their greatest concerns, again, were very similar in terms of rise in housing costs and change of character. They also brought up safety, and I think they were talking about street crossing safety oftentimes in their feedback here. They had concerns about displacement and impacts on diversity and transportation. And overall, they wanted to see if the streetcar was introduced, efforts being made to increase the safety on the streets that the alignment were on, bring affordable housing to the area, and community and amenities and opportunity for jobs. Next slide. Finally, we did have our consultants do some preliminary look at the land development opportunities in there from a real nuts and bolts economic standpoint. They have a model that kind of projects how much development might occur over time. And their findings so far, and these are preliminary, are that Broadway and Irving perform well for jobs because they interface with more big sites in the Lloyd district and in that area between the Sandy and the Banfield, which offer opportunities for jobs. And Irving actually gets, because of the way the alignment works, gets some sites in the Central East Side Industrial District for job opportunity. The Sandy and Irving alignments also have a lot of potential for housing. Sandy, you're already seeing some of that happening. Broadway had fewer housing units than the other two alignments. And that is primarily because of the shallow lot depth. As part of this process, we're also going to do some analysis on some opportunity sites just to see what potential developments could look like. And we've got 3 of them selected that we look like we're moving forward on. One is at Northeast Irving around 16th Avenue, big site not too far from the freeway on-ramps. One is on Northeast Broadway in the area east of Northeast 33rd between what used to be Gordon's Fireplace and Hollywood Town Center. That area has been zoned for mixed-use development, former industrial area, and that's an opportunity to see what could happen in that area. And then there's a site on Northeast Sandy around 36th, which is a very large site that could be analyzed to see if something could be developed there that would aggregate parcels and make a feasible development. Next slide. So in terms of the next steps of our project, we're conducting those opportunity site analysis. And I just want to say that we should have a draft report with some kind of a more full-blown analysis of those 3 alignments, what we heard from the community, and any identification of any future land use and transportation needs, probably later in the spring. And that would also include some mention of equitable development considerations. I mentioned a couple of those that we heard from the CBO outreach, but really affordable housing, affordable commercial space, and concerns about displacement were the three high-level things that we heard about from them. So that's all we have for right now. Stay tuned. But
Barry,
happy to take questions.
yeah, Barry, could you please put the link for where you can get this information into the chat line, because the visual doesn't go down far enough to show that link. That would be great.
All of this is available on our on the web page, and hopefully there it is right there. So it's a little bit difficult to navigate. But if you poke around under the documents, you'll find it. There's a open house results. You'll find that. And then there's a whole section that talks about community-based outreach. It has a blue tab on it. You can click on that, and the reports are embedded under that. So you can kind of track them down that way. So, but there's a lot of documents, a lot of information out there. We've reached out to, quite a few folks, and we're going to be having, as I said, a report coming out in spring on the east side. On the west side, we're going to hopefully have something coming out in late February talking about proposed zoning changes in that area.
Well, our neighborhood did not get notification of your open house, and we would have loved to be a part of that. So I don't know what happened to communication between us and you guys at that point. But I know that none of our team received that. So I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, we who knows?
Yeah. And I would suggest for folks that are interested in tracking this, there is a interested persons sign up list right on that webpage. So you can click on that, just fill out a quick form. You'll go on my interested parties list, and we'll keep you in the loop on everything.
Good.
Yeah.
So when talking about the Eco Northwest study, is there a certain amount assumed to be paid by the property owners on either side of the trolley that would help pay for this? My understanding is at least a third of the cost would have to be borne by the property owners on either side.
Yeah. Kate maybe will help me out here, but I mean, streetcar projects have traditionally in Portland been funded partially through local improvement districts, which is a assessment of properties that are nearby the streetcar. So if you're directly adjacent, you may pay a certain increment. If you're a certain distance away, you would pay a different increment. I'm not sure to the extent that Eco Northwest information on the east side is like hot off the press. So I don't have the detail of how much, what they factored into that in terms of what percentage of streetcar investment they might have considered. What they do is they have a development model tool, and this was all called Mapcraft Lab. I have to say that slowly or it doesn't come out properly. And what it's a predictive model that says that, under these circumstances, land values are such, development potential is such, you're likely to see development on these parcels. And on other parcels that are more fully developed now, that have higher values or more building on them, you're less likely to see development happen. So it predicts where you're going to see development happen and gives us numbers. And again, those numbers are pretty fresh, so I don't know what it went into that equation.
Yeah, I do know that it works almost like urban renewal. Whenever a streetcar goes in, it does lift up the costs. And yeah, there are some benefits to folks that get in there and know the right discounts, but it's not necessarily easy for small businesses to play that game. And so that is one of our concerns, and has been ever since the whole idea of a trolley on Sandy Boulevard came up.
Well, and that's really the reason we reached out to these community-based organizations to help us with some of that outreach. MISO has some presence in that area, not as much as we would hopefully like to get later on, but we were definitely concerned about the impact to small businesses, particularly women and minority-owned businesses that may not have access to capital, and what the implications would be to them if something like this happened. It's far enough out there in the future, 10 or 15 years, many of those business owners may not even be in business at that point in time or operating those businesses, but it's still going to be an ongoing concern. So we want to kind of document what those are so that we can have them in our consciousness if we move forward with more detailed planning here. I saw a hand up and there's a question in the chat about Rose Lanes. I'm not sure that I can field that. Kate, do you want to speak to that one at all? Or?
Yeah, let me actually pull up the chat. Does it interface with the Rose Lane or is that still open? Yeah, I mean, I think in the idea of an interfacing is that, like Barry mentioned, this is really kind of an idea right now, or it's an exploration that's quite far down the road. I think, you know, with the Rose Lanes, as TriMet and PBOT move forward piloting that project, we'll see whether it makes sense, whether it's working, whether it's delivering good benefits or not. And then if those Rose Lanes are determined to be useful and are made permanent, then yeah, I think that would factor into our evaluation of whether it makes sense to put a streetcar in. You know, we want services to support each other, but not necessarily duplicate each other where it doesn't make sense. But if there was a reason for it, you know, if down the road we felt like we needed more transit capacity, I mean, streetcar can carry larger numbers of passengers than a bus. We would probably utilize existing Rose Lane infrastructure where the streetcar is. But again, any kind of like design implications at this point are just really quite far down the road. So I think we would adapt to what we see on the ground, whether Rose Lane is on the ground in 15 years or not.
If I can add just one more thing to that, I would say, you know, I don't know if Kate mentioned this or not, but streetcar, it serves a transportation function, obviously, but it also is a development tool. Frankly, it was a big factor in development of the Pearl District. It's been a big factor in development of other districts where the streetcar has been introduced. And so, what part of this analysis, again, you know, and why we ask Eco Northwest to look at where development would happen is to find out, you know, does it make sense on one of the major arterials like Broadway or Sandy, or does it make more sense on a street like Irving, where you don't have current transit service, but you have lots of development opportunity, and would it help incentivize that and provide another option in those areas? So we're still working through those questions.
Yeah. Great questions. All right. Are there any other questions from the audience at this point?
I saw Susan Lindman has a hand raised. I'm not sure if you're seeing that or not, but
Susan? I can't hear you. So Susan, if you could put something in the chat if you have a question.
on my screen it says no now, so I guess we either answered the question. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much for your time, and everybody who's interested better get on that that chat line. We will take that and put that on our website so folks can get to that at any time.
And we'll make sure you get notified when the next documents come out. I'll get you on the updates. Tamara, but if you sign up, I'll make sure you get on that.
Okay.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. Take care, Barry. Thank you,
Thanks,
Kate.
thanks for your time.
You bet. Okay, now we're going to hear some brief updates from our committees. And Kelly, I don't know if you have anything to add to everything that's been talked about tonight with all these proposals.
Just briefly. So the Sandy 51 apartments, looks like those are mostly complete and the leasing signs are up. The Land Use and Transportation Committee is looking at touring that facility. So I'm going to try and set that up. The Umpqua Bank apartments at 47th and Sandy probably will finish this summer. The 70s Bikeway is a project that we had a presentation on at the Land Use and Transportation Committee this last month. And this is it extends the bikeway through the Rose City Golf Course. And they are proposing making Northeast 72nd one way down the hill for vehicles. So we had a Zoom call with PBOT, as I mentioned, and they suggested that concerned neighbors and our board write letters to the mayor and commissioners outlining whatever concerns we have. The good news is that this is mostly a striping and signage project. So going back to a two-way as it is now is not going to be a huge problem. And then lastly, the Rose Lane project, Kate talked about that briefly. This is a study that would impact traffic on Sandy Boulevard. The project would prioritize bus and bike lanes over vehicles, elimination of parking, and some one-way traffic on feeder streets may be included. So the Land Use and Transportation Committee has asked a PBOT representative to attend our February 18th meeting to further discuss the project. So if you're interested, look at our website, and everyone is welcome to join.
Actually, just an update on that, Kelly. They said that they could come to the Land Use Committee or come to our general membership meeting. And I'm thinking we'll have a better audience at our next general membership meeting in March. So,
Okay.
and that will take place on the 30th. So if that's okay, we can open up a broader set of questions and more people can participate. So we'll schedule the Rose Lane at our very next general membership meeting on the 30th of March. Hopefully
Great.
that will, that okay? All right. All right. Jennifer, what do you have in the way of communications for us?
So communications, I don't know, everybody should have received their newsletter now. We had our first newsletter produced with our new editor, Linda Hoskin, who's joined us today. She did an amazing job, kept everybody just on time and got it done. It was amazing. So she did great. We are, looking to try to increase some of our electronic presence. And so we've been making sure to get things posted online into Facebook and to Nextdoor and all the many places. And I've gotten some additional support with Nate Ramsey from that. And so that's it. The next newsletter submissions will be due in early-ish February. So if anybody here is interested in submitting something, you can submit your ideas or articles to editor@rcpna.org, and we'll take a look at that. And if you don't have a copy of the newsletter digitally, it's on our website. And then if you'd like, I'll touch on the events too. So just events for us. We got a question about the cleanup. There's not been any funding from Metro, so right now we don't have a cleanup scheduled. We are tentatively planning to do the 2 concerts in the park in July with Rhonda Steele and Norman Sylvester. And we're just kind of waiting for all the restrictions to ease, but we're trying to make some progress on that. So do want to have some events as we move forward.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Don, if you're here, can you give us an update on the community safety for our area? I don't see Don.
He was here, but I think he's been having some technology problems.
Okay. Why don't we just step over to the diversity committee? Mauro, are you with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Wonderful. I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Hello. I don't know most of you, and most of you don't know me. I have not been participating in the neighborhood association really very much, and just really started getting involved when the diversity committee was created. The committee, I think, is at a little bit of a crossroads. I wasn't involved in the initial startup, but there seems to be a decent amount of engagement at the beginning, which sort of fizzled towards the end of the year, which is, I think, natural towards the end of the year for a lot of things. But I do think there's a lot of neighborhood interest in anti-racism work, and with a goal of being a neighborhood that welcomes, attracts, and supports marginalized folks. Essentially, I think with our goals, we jumped into a book that not enough of us were quite ready for. And we should just take a step back. My suggestion is maybe to look at Ijeoma Oluo's book, So You Want to Talk About Race. I also think we should hire a Black anti-racism facilitator to help the group process constructively. And Tamara reported that Civic Life looks like they are setting up contracts with people of color who can provide community discussion facilitation for free to the community. I'm assuming that Civic Life is paying them. That is the goal. We want people of color to be paid for their work. I do think that this committee would be most useful to the neighborhood association if there's at least some board members that are involved. It feels like we need a commitment from the board that anti-racism is a priority for our neighborhood, and part of that commitment is for all of us to be doing the work together.
Great, I agree. It's definitely needed, and I think having an easier book to start with would be better. I'm still working on the other one, and it's tough. Yeah, it's good, but it's just it's a lot of internal work going on. I've got a lot of skeletons in my closets here.
It is, and I think especially for a group that that didn't necessarily have a whole lot of interaction together, like that, it is a lot to process with people that you have not made connections with yet. So
right, and it's not easy on doing this with Zoom. You know,
it's not.
All we've been doing is having meetings on Zoom, so it makes it a little bit awkward. Yep. So yeah, I think a facilitator would be great, and let's look at that. And also, we were talking about a new meeting scheduled for 7 p.m. on February 9th. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay,
so that's open to everyone who's interested. Just let me know if you want to join, and I will make sure that you get an invite, and I'll also put it up on our website before the 9th. Let's look a week ahead of that, and probably on the 3rd, I'll have something posted for anyone who's interested.
What's the printing date for the next newsletter?
That is good. I am not sure. Kate, are you still with us with our newsletter?
Linda might know.
Linda's muted.
Linda.
Yeah, she's checking, she said.
Okay.
Okay. I got unmuted. The deadline for the next newsletter is February the 8th.
The deadline is the 8th?
The deadline's the 8th, and the issue date for distribution is mid-March, or early March, I'm sorry, early March.
Okay. I'll try to get something in, and if other folks, because we're not going to be able to meet before that deadline, but I will try to get something in, and if other folks have input as well, I'll put my contact info in the chat.
Yeah,
or if you could possibly provide an early draft, since you won't have your meeting until the 9th, just an early draft as a placeholder, so that we've got time to not only structure the layout of the newsletter and put it through a couple of reviews, but a lot of that lead time is for the printer and the distribution to have it out by early March. So if you could get something shortly after your meeting, or before that, just something as a placeholder, that might work, Mauro.
Sounds great.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Linda. Good. Thank you, Mauro. Hopefully I get to meet you in person soon. We'll have to meet in the tent at New Deal, something like that. All right. I just had a quick announcement about our treasury. Treasurer is not doing a report, but the fact is that our fundraiser for the year is always our cleanup. And right now, Civic Life is not helping out in providing the dumpsters, which is what they did in the past. And so we are not going to be able to have a fundraiser using the cleanup. Not unless someone donates some dumpsters for us, it's going to be really tough. And that means we will not be able to generate the $3,400 we normally do for the year in order to pay for the music in the parks. So anyone who's interested in helping us figure out how we can do a better financial plan without the cleanup, please let me know. We need all the help we can get it at this point. At this time, let's turn to the presentation of the Walker Award, which is to John Schweibert. He actually was our founding chairman for the Rose City Park Neighborhood Association, and he's still alive. So I'm going to turn this over to, I guess it's going to be Kelly, right? Do you have access to the video?
I'm supposed to have access to a video?
Well, I thought you did, but Don is back, so Don can give an update. Yeah, I think Ed sent you a copy of that video link.
Okay.
On the Outlook
Look
site.
for that.
Okay, Don, are you with us?
I am.
Okay, go ahead. You're giving us an update on the community safety.
Yes, I'm a member of the Community Safety Public Safety Committee for Rose City Park Neighborhood Association. Our responsibilities to listen to neighborhood concerns concerning community well-being, public safety, any of those issues. And while we can't solve the problems, generally, what we try to do is track down the information and get information back and resources to concerned members on how to deal with some of the concerns that they have. So, for example, early on in the Public Safety Committee, there was, as probably people are aware of, there's been an increase in property crime and other crimes in the neighborhood. It's been going on for several years. There was initially some concern that the increase in public housing situation in the Ellington apartments was responsible for that. And that can certainly start some neighborhood rumors and cause some conflicts within the community. When we looked into it a little bit deeper and actually were able to plot out where these incidents took place over the previous couple of years, it was found that most of those incidents happened within a half a block of the major transit corridors. So along Sandy Boulevard, along Halsey, along 47th, along 60th, areas where people could easily come from outside the neighborhood, do a quick smash and grab and exit the neighborhood. So there was very little connection between the Ellington apartments as a site of low-income housing and that crime. Other things that we've taken a look at in order to provide information to communities concern, for example, we got response concern about traffic on 56th Avenue, that people were bypassing 57th because of traffic tie-ups during rush hour and zooming down 56th. So we were able to contact the traffic division, point out to the traffic division that over the previous 3 years, there had been 66 complaints made to the traffic division, and over those 3 years, 6 reported responses by the police department. So there seemed to be a disparity there. And while the traffic division is underfunded and are expected to be underfunded even more in the next budget year through Portland Police Bureau, at least provide a mechanism to remind people that we're here and maybe kind of bump us up in the priority list and make sure that people are aware that we're around. Another thing that we dealt with just recently, there was a neighborhood member that was having some issues with some houseless individuals living in an RV in front of the area around Normandy Park or Normandale Park, with just aggressive behavior and dangerous interactions. And So we were able to track down the responsible phone numbers and contacts to call if you have problems with garbage. So there is a mechanism to remove garbage from cleanup camping areas, and for aggressive behavior, ways to contact the proper people so that that can be remediated. So that's the sort of thing we do, is to try to take in concerns from the neighborhood and try to figure out exactly what's going on, and within our power provide resources to resolve those issues. I think it's pretty clear to everybody that city, state, federal resources are all pretty overstressed right now and overburdened, and there's not a lot of resources available to deal with new issues. And so one of our goals is to try to make connections within the neighborhood and build capacity within to help resolve our common issues, as opposed to looking for outside help, of which there's not a lot. So that's all I've got.
Okay. Thank you so much, Don. And also, aren't you a member of a committee that's looking at funding the police, or how the police is being funded?
Yes, I was selected to be a member of the Police Bureau area-wide advisory committee. So we're currently in meetings to try to provide perspective to the Police Bureau from a community perspective on aspects of the budget, where to prioritize from the community concerns, what areas of police response and police interactions should be supported.
Very good. Thank you so much. Kelly, I have the Schweibert video here on their RCPNA video on YouTube.
Okay, can you share that then?
I can try.
Just click on share screen.
Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to do that.
At the bottom.
All right, I'm flipping between screens here. Share screen. All right, here's that. And well, it's not talking. That's me talking, and I'm doing introduction, but I don't hear a thing. Do you hear anything?
You have to share the sound as well.
How do I do that?
There's evidently two buttons at the bottom of the screen where you can click to share the sound and the video.
Well, you know, I'm not technically inclined here. Okay, so at the bottom of the screen, I got share screen, but I don't know where it says share sound. You can, sorry, this is not working. I apologize, folks. I don't know how to do this. Kelly, can you figure this out?
I think he's getting some advice right now.
Okay.
So I have Ed on the telephone, and Ed's trying to show me how to do this, or show us how to do this. So if you click on the share screen, double click on the share screen,
double click.
Then it should pop up into a different window. And at the bottom of that window, you should be able to see a couple of buttons where you can click to share the video. Audio, excuse me.
Well,
You want to unmute it.
still not doing it.
You have the video showing, but you gotta go to the right there where it has a speaker, and unmute that.
Is that a no?
It's still not working. I'm sorry. See, we're lost without Ed. Just how it works.
So
Okay. I can mouth over what I'm saying. This is John Schweibert. He began the Rose City Park Neighborhood Association as part of a group out of the Rose City Park Methodist Church. And he found out as a junior pastor that livability was one of the biggest issues. And so because of that, he was called to step up to become the chair of this group that ended up being the neighborhood association in accordance with the 1970s push to have neighborhood associations recognized throughout the city of Portland. And with that, we ended up having them create a mission statement, which was very much the same as what we currently have, which is maintain community and livability. Here I'm grabbing for the language right now. Maintain the community and livability of the neighborhood. Something like that. It's in our newsletter. Boy, isn't this great? John Schweibert ended up helping start the Peace House, which is a place that he still is maintaining for the Methodist Church here in Portland. And he had stayed with our neighborhood association for a good 10 years before he moved to the Peace House. So this is the Walker Award that's presented to people who have done outstanding work for our community. And with it comes $100 and it's a happy thing. And for those of you who don't know, George Walker was a longtime member of Rose City Park Neighborhood Association, and he and his wife, Esther, worked with the Neighborhood Association for over 10, 15 years, and he just did outstanding work for our community. So after he passed, we started the Walker Award presentations annually. There I am in my mask, fuzzing up my eyes. Okay. Congratulations. Yay. Okay. Now, Kelly, do you have the presentation by Larry Wilder?
I do. So we'll see if I have any better luck than you did.
You
So
do.
cross your fingers.
My apologies, everyone.
2020 vision for America. Are we a shining city sending out the call? Are we decent folks who want to work together for each other and the healing of us all? Now we the people love our USA, so let's all stand up and fight for her today. Stop and think and do our part as we hold her to our hearts. It's our mission for a better USA. When we act, the USA will united lead the way. Ask the lady on the Isle of Liberty. She demands of me and you for the old red, white, and blue. Pull together for a better USA. All across the land, we love our vets. We gotta give them love and due respect. And why not use our wealth to secure the nation's health? What's our vision for a better USA? This great nation will endure with our commitment. Let our visions manifest without delay. With the spirit and the light and the vote to do what's right, we're talking about a better USA. So here's my 2020 vision for America. We will be the shining city on the hill. So let's open up our hearts. We all can play a part. It's our vision for a better USA. When we act, the USA will united lead the way. Ask the lady on the Isle of Liberty. She demands of me and you for the old red, white, and blue. Pull together for a better USA. Let's pull together for a better USA. See 2020 for the good old USA. Everybody wants.
You muted, Tam.
Okay, now I have to figure out how to stop it.
Tamara, you're muted.
Okay, well, that's the end of our program for tonight, and I hope you come and join us for our next meeting on March 30th. Unless there's other comments tonight, I'd like to just close the meeting and wish you well and hope everybody stays safe and helps their neighbor. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.